Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's 9 o'clock. Thank you very much for joining Conversations with Wendy. We are very excited to have you here. Just for purposes of housekeeping, I will let our host, Josephine, be able to run us through our house rules. As we are starting, we are giving the participants a little bit more time to join before we begin. So kindly bear with us as we will begin at exactly 5 minutes past the hour. Once again, thank you very much for joining Conversations with Wendy, and we are looking forward to having a very engaging discussion with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. It's yet another time of the month where we gather and meet to have topical discussions on issues that affect our daily interactions. And we are excited that this month we are speaking about leadership, right about a time when we are all looking at what we can do and what we have done throughout the year, even as we come to the end of this last quarter. So for housekeeping, allow me to once again welcome you to the Conversations with Wendy webinar on my leadership journey, where we are joined by three incredible young leaders who are willing and are going to share their leadership journeys with us. So rule number one when it comes to Conversations with Wendy is that we have fun, and we have a lot of fun along with it. So it's not a closed door kind of boardroom discussion. So feel free to shoot your questions via our Q&A whenever you feel like you have something pressing, and we shall address the questions as we go by. When time allows, towards the end, we can have a Q&A session. But for now, please remember you can present your questions on our Q&A or our chats, and we shall look at them and address them as we go. Rule number two, remember to please mute. Should you have a question that you need to ask in person, just raise your hand. And then remember, we are live streaming on YouTube, so we are live there as well. You can refer. We are also active on our social media pages, and that is on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Conversations with Wendy. So engage us through the hashtag #MyLeadershipJourney and Conversations with Wendy. As we give the participants a few more time or minutes to join, allow us to start at exactly 9:05. And thank you once again, and welcome to Conversations with Wendy, My Leadership Journey. Great. Thank you very much for your patience. So now we officially start the webinar, My Leadership Journey, by Conversations with Wandi. Our super host is going to be one of the co-founders and co-directors of Conversations with Wandi, Wandera Kweyu, and it is my great honor to officially introduce her to start the webinar. Karibu sana, Wandi.
Thank you very much, Jocelyn. My sincere appreciation to the work that you do for Conversations with Wandi, and my very sincere appreciation to my panelists. We are very excited to have you here today. And thank you very much for my audiences that have continuously joined us throughout the year. We are very excited to continuously have you within this sessions with us. I will start quickly by just introducing my panelists. We have a very interesting and diverse panel today on our discussion on their leadership journeys. When I look at the panelists that are there, the one thing I appreciate the most is the vibrance that exists between amongst all of them. We have people from tech, we have people in tech, we have people in philanthropy, and we have people that have just founded and ran businesses. All this in a youthful stage. It's a very important aspect to mention that there is very interesting intricacies that occur for people to get to where they have gotten. And this is what we wanted to discuss today, a very easy and relaxed conversation with our panelists today. So let us begin with Mercy. 13 years in tech, innovating, and you say that one of your passion is to just, support companies to bring to fruition the innovation that they've been having behind the boardroom and what have you. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and the works that you have been doing.
Thanks, Wandi. Thanks for having me. My name is Mercy. I have a background in operations, HR, and administration and compliance. My passion is to work with companies that are innovating in the spaces that they are in and basically trying to improve the lives of people. I have worked in the corporate world and switched to social enterprises a couple of years ago because I was fascinated at how things like technology can be used to improve people's lives and how all these questions, all these challenges that people are facing out here. And so just finding that sweet spot where you use technology, education, things like that to improve on people's livelihoods and give them an opportunity to improve was something that caught my attention. And so have spent the last about 6 years in this space. Looking forward to having conversations about what this has been during working at social enterprises and even before. Thanks, Wandi.
A very interesting and amazing statement that you have just made, especially with the switch between, the organizations for philanthropy, the for-profit organizations. We would really want to dive deep as we continue with our conversation to see how that actually works and whether or not that can destabilize the journey of a person through leadership. Thank you very much, Mercy. Feel very welcome. We thank you for your time and we hope to have a very good conversation with you. Now, we have also with us Bonnie Mbithi. Bonnie Mbithi has a very interesting journey that we would really like to understand and appreciate. We've seen him founding organizations, one after the other, both and mainly in philanthropy. He has quite a number of years in experience, and he's also a techie in the background. So Bonnie, if you could tell us a little bit more about the WE Center and this new organization that you have just founded as we continue to converse.
Thank you for having me. My name is Bonnie Mbithi. I'm the CEO for the WE Center, which is an e-waste recycling company. So we make sure that electronic waste in Kenya is safely managed in a way that it doesn't harm the environment and also doesn't negatively affect the health of people. Yeah. So been running WE Center for a couple of years now, and also Computers for Schools Kenya, which again is a non-profit. So also cut in between running a non-profit and also running a business. WE Center is a profit-making business. And then recently founded Circular Innovation Hub, which again resonates very well with what we do at the WE Center, which is about circular economy. So I felt that as a company, we focused on e-waste. We could not do all these other forms of waste. And you have young people, amazing startups that want to innovate things to do with climate change, things to do with circular economy, but they don't get the opportunity and the platform. So I created the Circular Innovation Hub to be able to bridge and close that gap, to provide startups and also build entrepreneurs who can solve climate change and also promote circular economy. So in a nutshell, that's me, that's what I do. And I'm happy to be with you this morning.
Thank you very much, Bonnie, and feel very welcome. We thank you for your time. We're looking forward to having a very interesting conversation with you and the rest of the panelists. Now, on our panel, we have Francis, who has served 5,295 cups of uji to different children in different schools to just help with the very, very primal area of hunger, and everything else is normally quite difficult to do if you are not in a position of good nourishment for you to proceed with anything that you want to do. Francis has been at this for over 10 years. I would just like to appreciate, Francis, how do you do this? And we can then have a very good conversation with you on this matter and more. Francis? Francis, you're on mute.
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, sorry for being late. The pleasure is all mine to be part of this conversation. And so, yeah, basically I run Cup of Uji, which is a school feeding initiative in this country. And we just aim at looking at addressing hunger issues, short-term hunger among less privileged primary school children in Kenya. And at the same time, we look forward to driving their education, because you can't learn in a hungry stomach. So basically, when we give them the porridge every morning, we look forward to them being able to concentrate in class, and also at the same time, being able to pursue their education. So it's kind of an incentive for them to even attend school, because in most of the schools that we support, which are currently 6 in number, we realize that basically the absenteeism rates are down, because they look forward to, there's something in school that is being offered aside from just education. So that is basically what we do. And we are currently in 5 counties, that is West Pokot, Kajiado, Nairobi, Homa Bay, Kilifi. So we are grateful for the opportunity to even be able to impact those young lives. So far we have 5,295 children that we support every day with a cup of uji. So it's just basically porridge. But once in a while, sometimes when you get support, we get to also chip and give lunch of rice and beans. So, but the main thing is usually a cup of uji in the morning. Yes, that is it.
Wow, now that is just amazing and outstanding. As you can see, the people that we have on this panel today have been leading in very different spheres, and they have been doing things that all of us at some point, you might be sitting back and wondering, what is it that I'm doing that I'm not able to get to the levels that the different people we are speaking to have gotten to that level? You might want to sit and ask yourself, is there something about me that is making me not be able to, break through in all of the hurdles that come with leading from the front? But then again, the thing that I want to remind each and every person on this conversation is that leadership is a very long journey. It is a very, very long journey. I remember one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs was, overnight success takes a very long time. It really takes a very long time. And just to start there, I want to just go directly and ask you, Bonnie, when did you discover that you are actually on a leadership course? Was it conscious for you, or you just found yourself somewhere in the middle?
That's a very interesting question. I don't think you'd say you'd know, yeah? It just happens because it's not, I don't believe that you can really go to a school and learn leadership from scratch and say you want to become a leader. So some of it happens accidentally, and then you find yourself in the middle of something, and before you know it, you're already creating teams and leading people. And at that point is when now you decide you need to become a better leader. So you start looking at what kind of things you need to do to become better. So that would include maybe reading leadership books, attending leadership courses, just to better the art that you have. It's just like, I believe leadership is like any other art. So you'd not consciously wake up and say that now I feel I'm ready. And I don't think you'll ever be ready. None of the leaders we have will tell you that they at any point felt now they were ready to be a leader. Even myself and any other leader, you always feel you're lacking something, you know? So you have that thirst to trend and become better at what you do. You never feel ready. You never feel like you're a good leader.
Mm. Yeah, and I like the fact that you have said that, because that is a very raw statement that makes the people that are growing within this journey or are starting to think about themselves as leaders to appreciate that it is still a continuous process, even to those people that have gone to that limelight space where you can be able to see their achievements. It's important to have it in mind that growing to get there in this new phase is not as easy or as complete as people would want to look at it, which then brings me to the space where I'm wondering, and I want to pose that to Mercy and wonder, understanding that to bring yourself to that area where you're now thinking about it in a more direct manner. I would want to ask you, is there any importance in defining leadership for you as a person, yeah? And if it is important for you, how have you defined it? And I'm not talking about these big definitions that are all over the place. I'm just wondering, for you as an individual and in your journey, have you defined leadership? And what importance is that to you?
Thanks, Wendy. So I think it's important to define leadership for yourself. I mean, you've got very many definitions, as you said. I'm doing my MBA right now, and it's in leadership, and there are all these theories and frameworks about leadership. But when it comes to it all, my understanding of leadership is just the ability to influence. Leadership is being able to influence, and you can influence positively or you can influence negatively. So the way I've defined leadership for myself is that I'd like to be a positive influence to people, to be able to guide them towards, when it's within an organizational setting, to be able to guide them towards a mission or a vision that we're working towards, or be able to achieve certain goals, certain strategies, or even within a personal space to influence them for good, so that we can be able to work together towards a certain good. So I think it's really important to define leadership and understand what it means for you, because it will help you define the areas that you need to improve on. It will help you define the areas that you are strong in, you know, or even also just identify the kind of, for example, leader that you never want to be. I know that I was thrust into leadership and I failed, obviously, because it was not intentional whatsoever. It was a situational thing. And so had to figure out this whole leadership thing, management and leadership thing on my own, because it was what the company needed at that time. I made very many mistakes at that point. But one of the things I know that I take from that time is that I realized what kind of leader I never want to be. So it's been a journey. Obviously, no one ever gets it right at once. I've made mistakes even within the spaces that I said that I do not want to do. But I think it's having that definition and having that clarity of mind helps me every day to look at myself, introspect, and improve on this.
Wow, I like that. You know, sometimes definitions come from the things that you have seen and the things that actually repulse you as a human being, that makes you say, okay, this is not something that I want to do. And sometimes you find yourself in a spot where you're doing the exact same thing that you said you don't want to do. For myself, in my own leadership journey, what I have noticed is you have to be continually very forgiving of self. You have to sit continuously and look at yourself from a very, very good light. You know, sometimes we beat ourselves up really much when we're looking at ourselves, the things we did and we didn't want to do, the things that we consciously knew we shouldn't be doing. And sometimes you can beat yourself up so much that it becomes quite difficult for you to keep soldiering on in this journey that is leadership. So one of the things that is quite important for any person that is leading is to just forgive yourself. look at yourself as a human being and forgive yourself for the things that you have done. Thank you very much, Mercy, for that very in-depth understanding on why leadership is important to have a definition. And when I look at this, we've seen that leadership comes from different people, different areas. Sometimes more often than not, you get thrust into it and you just have to, define, create parameters and start working around it. And I go directly to you, Francis and Wanda. Your area in leadership is appearing very purpose-led. What would you say is the importance of having purpose in leadership and in your journey specifically?
Okay, I think mine is interesting because what I can say is that it might appear so right now in terms of my purpose and my journey, but it wasn't that easy. It's been all 10 years, but before that, I think I struggled with having to accept the path where I am currently because I've been shortly a journalist. I've also been a teacher. Actually, my last assignment was as a teacher. So I think at the end of that year, I just told the principal, I think this is not for me. And I'm calling something else. So for me, even in terms of purpose, it's something that I didn't know growing up. It's something that it was there. I had the urge to always make a difference, but I didn't really see it as something where the direction that my life would take. So growing up and getting to the point when I have to be able to be out there impacting lives, it has been a journey. And then I'm also grateful for the fact that, I don't know, they say, sometimes they say, I don't know whether the leaders are born or made. It's a very interesting debate though. But I would say that leadership in general, it is not easy. It is not a walk in the park, because even for me personally, and having started what I do 10 years ago, I was so young. So 10 years ago, I was young. And so having to deal with different aspects of dealing with senior people who are elderly than me, I think it is still even a challenge up to today, because I walk in certain places and then I have a very skinny body. So you see, they ask, and who are you? And then I say my name and they're like, oh, okay, because they expected someone who is at least elderly. So sometimes it's a big challenge. It's really something else. But once you believe in yourself, I think the important thing is believing in yourself, and also at the same time learning from those who have walked in that path that you are taking. So you really need to learn from those who have walked that path, and just, you don't have to actually engage them at a personal level, because some of them might not be reachable, but at this, just try to emulate what they have been able to do in certain circumstances, and how they have been able to even handle issues, and even read, because reading is equally important. And and at the same time, pray. Some of these things, I pray a lot about what I do. So some of these things, it takes a lot of hard work. It takes sacrifices, because sometimes you deal with issues where you have a team that you are leading, and then they have issues amongst themselves. So you have to balance and try and see. And something, I think for me, I was fortunate enough in the sense that my late mom happened to be a head teacher in a primary school. So that made it easier for me in terms of getting to see how she was actually running the school. And at a tender age, I would be able to see how she would handle issues. And that was really an advantage for me. And I was like, because there are times when things got tough and you would even see like she was getting stressed, but she would handle it in such a way that at the end of the day, everything else seemed so calm. And so I think for me, that was a big advantage. So leadership, it doesn't have a straight path. Let me just say leadership doesn't have a straight path. And in as much as we emulate other leaders, I think we all have our individual strengths and weaknesses. So we just need to embrace that. We need to embrace our strengths, we need to embrace our weaknesses, and we need to accept where we've gone wrong, because that is also important when you're leading a team. In as much as you're the boss, but at certain times you also need to just accept when things go wrong and you're on the wrong. And at the same time, also give them the opportunity to lead, because as we speak, even for me currently, there's an activity that needed my attention, but now because I have a team, I just delegated. Sometimes they complain, but you see, you just push them there, you never know, and just believe in them, because I think trusting your team is something that is also essential in leadership. The team that you work with, when you trust them with certain responsibilities, they might see it as something that you're the only one who can do. But I think what I keep on reminding my team is that, one day Francis falls off and faints somewhere and is dead. What happens to Kapo Fuji? It needs to run, it needs to go on, the kids need to be fed. So you are the guys who will be there running, and you're the guys who need to know how things run. So basically, that is all I can say.
Yeah, and that's it's very interesting. You mentioned that there is places where you have seen this happen. You have learned from the different people that are around you. You have seen very many things that have led you to appreciate that, yes, this is a direction that I can go, this can work out, this cannot work out, and that your purpose is not as obvious as people think. Even when you have all your things seemingly put together, your purpose is not as direct and as simple as people think. I just think, sorry, I wonder, Bonnie, do you yourself have a purpose? Is yours clearer? Have you been modifying, or how are you going about that?
Great. I think you learn your purpose as you go, yeah. And then once you get it, it becomes even addictive. Like for me, I feel I'm so impact oriented, especially creating change and just seeing that there's impact in the society. So anything that I would do that I feel does not resonate well with my values, let's say I was to head a company that sells things that are not creating any positive impact in the society, that would not be something that I would want to be involved in. So I found myself to be addicted to impact, social change, and being in an environment where you can see your actions. I remember some time back, I hired a lady and she used to work for a big company. And when I went to talk to her, because I was trying to poach her from that company, not even poach her, I had gone for a meeting. And then as I was leaving, she was like, I would want to come and work with you. Then I asked her, do you know how small we are as a company and the kind of company that you're working for? And then she told me, yes, I know we are a big company. And the offices that I dreamt of having, they had very amazing offices. They told her, trust me, it's not even close to how our offices would look like. So I don't see why you'd leave such a big company and come work with us. And she said she doesn't feel appreciated. She doesn't feel that her work creates any positive change. Whether she comes to work or not, the company will still be profitable. Whether she quits, whether she works so hard, the company will still probably achieve the results that it's supposed to achieve at the end of the year, So that really challenged me, and I was like, this makes a lot of sense, because a lot of people think being satisfied in terms of work and in terms of career is making so much money and being in certain big companies, but that's not the case. It's about the purpose. It's about the change that you want to impact in the society. So and that's why you see motivating employees is not just paying them well. And I constantly tell the people that I work with, sometimes we forget to say thank you, but whenever you just write an email and tell somebody, I think you've done well, or even send them a text, and tell them that I appreciate you, that would even mean a lot than paying them. I remember some years back, around 2014, we had tough times, and sometimes would go for 2 months without paying employees, and these people would work very hard. So sometimes you don't even want to go to the office, because you're like, now these people, they will see me and think, why is this guy pushing us to work and we've not been paid? But I realized it's not just about paying people. When you create that purpose, you show them the mission, that it's clear, and they become part of it. And this also comes when you do recruitment. When you take part in recruitment, you have to recruit people who really fall in love with what it is that you're doing. Otherwise, if you just get the best marketer or the best salesperson from a company that does not really resonate very well with your mission. When they come, they will just be doing sales like any other sale. But when you have somebody who is passionate and they fall in love with the purpose and the mission of what you want to do, now that's a team that you want to work with. So for me, I feel purpose, you get it clear, but it's something that you constantly go define it just to make it better. It's just like I said about leadership. It's never ready. There's no time that you'll say now, this is it. You always continuously define your purpose, and also you constantly define your mission, but you have that inner self that tells you, this is what I want to do.
Wendy, if I can just jump in here and add that I think purpose helps us also to be laser focused. I know for me, it helps me once I have my purpose clear, which of course, purpose, as everyone has said, Bonnie and Francis have really clearly articulated. It's not something that just comes like that. It's something that you keep working on. But once you figure it out, it helps, like for me, it helps me be laser focused. I think it also gives me the courage to say no to other opportunities that may take me away from my purpose, right? So there are all these attractive things that come my way, all this, especially since I started putting myself out there. There are all these amazing opportunities that have come my way, but when I sit down and explore and ask myself, how is this helping me further my purpose? You find that actually some of them take you really, really far away. And so you find that having this clear definition of purpose, personal purpose, helps you say no to such opportunities. And then I think also I'll just echo what Bonnie said. Definitely having a purpose kind of gives you the drive to do that which you love. Yeah, I think that's why I've been able to connect with social enterprises and also be able to really explore when I'm looking for an opportunity, really explore what they're about, because having that purpose connects me to impact. And therefore, even if I get a job and they're paying me, for example, well below market rate, which has been the case a number of times in social enterprises, the fact, the drive, the love of what I do by purpose connecting with the impact has been able to keep me going. So I definitely would agree with Bonnie that sometimes it's more than just about the money. If you have purpose and it connects to impact, it would really help you choose your opportunities and really give yourself fully, wholeheartedly to that opportunity.
Yes, I can see that even as we are having this discussion, you're noticing that the very many questions we are asking are centered around a stage in leadership in the leadership journey where you are discovering yourself. You're starting to know what it is that you want. You're starting to define the type of leader that you want to be. You're charting out a path and you're going forward, learning how the world is full of different issues on a consistent basis. You are appreciating that sometimes you can move from one stage to another. Sometimes what you thought would be the ideal is not necessarily going to be the ideal. And so I would just like to ask to any of our panelists who would want to volunteer on this, what is the purpose then of networking? Where do you network from? How do you find these people? Because this is a question that I have been asked consistently. I want to network. I just don't know who to network with. I don't know where these networks come from. Please assist me. So maybe if we could just have a round of understanding, where did you start finding your networks? How did you get admitted into these zones where you're networking? And what is it that turns you off when somebody tries to network with you? And yes. So maybe if we could start with Francis, then we go to Bonnie and then to Mercy.
Okay, this is interesting. The topic of networking is one very interesting topic. And so let me just say, for me personally, I think what happened in terms of networking is I started with social media. So I think I take social media so seriously, and I believe in the power of social media. And so as a result, like, you know, those networks that came from social media ended up turning into physical networks. And at the same time, aside from social media, because I'm so keen on what I post, so mostly I share with young people that, be so careful about what you share on social media in terms of even your work and what you do, because it is important. These days we have companies that do background checks even on your social. So sometimes I tell them, I meet so many amazing young people who are doing amazing stuff, but apparently you go to their socials and you have to go through like 20 posts to get to see what they're actually doing. So, which is quite unfortunate. So, and then at the same time on social media, not everyone will comment, not everyone will like, not everyone will love what you share, but you have silent followers. I've had people who tell me later on, like, we've been following your work for 5 years, 5 years, a company is just silent, following what you're doing. And then now they decide to support after 5 years. So that's something interesting. And then again, go out there, attend events. Sometimes I attend events, not because they are related to what I do, but because I'm not so sure where I might meet there. I go to book launch, I just pay around for it, go there. Because once you're sitting on that table in that room, someone will be interested to ask you on that table, like, oh, what do you do? And then you just share. You never know where that will land you. But again, another thing that I tend to warn people about is that when you go doing networking and even interacting and sharing about your work and what you do, just don't have the impatience of having the entitlement that the rewards will be immediate. No, sometimes it even takes 10 years. It even takes 1 year, or it takes a day. So you never know, because there are people I've met, there's a guy I met, and later on when you are trying to get a sponsor for a student in a campus, then a lady got in touch with me and was like, oh, you are friends, you met with my husband somewhere, you are friends. And she didn't even disclose where I met the husband. So later on, I go to the husband's office because we had met at an event and just exchange contact. And then I'm like, I see the image of the lady and I'm like, okay, so actually that's where I got to know that was the wife. But that came years later. It wasn't immediate. So you never know who you might meet in some of these events. And also just sign up for even membership of certain associations and show up, volunteer somewhere, go to some of these events, just go volunteer your time, your skills. It doesn't have to be all about money all the time, So sometimes it's just about your skills, it's about your time. And I think that is something that has worked, come in handy for me because I'm also in Rotary. So that is also another cycle of a members-only institution where you are able to make an impact and still be able to meet amazing people who are doing incredible stuff in different fields. So I think basically for me, it's social media, and then my social media built into the physical, and then now the physical is now stretching, because now from that physical, someone is even able to share, oh no, there's someone who does ABCD, so you can get in touch with them and get to know what they do. So basically that is me. And I think I always emphasize on the fact that people, social media it depends on how you use it. It might be a poison, or it might be something beneficial to you based on how you use it. So yeah, so I've really benefited more from the social media aspect that has built into the physical aspect. So yeah, and then just attending events, volunteering out there, and doing you end up meeting amazing people and signing up for memberships of certain associations. So yeah, so that is what I can say to this.
Yes, online membership, show up. And as we continue, let's hear from you, Bonnie. Where are you getting these networks from?
Yeah, I think I agree with Francis on a couple of points. It's not easy. I don't think you just wake up and say, this is where the network is, or let me go to Serena. And I know there are people who do that. Yeah? I know there are people, I'm forgetting what they're called. My background is in law. So we have lawyers who are called
the ambulance chasers.
Yeah. So you have network chasers or something. So they would try and be in the right place at the right time. I don't think that's the best or right way to do or to create a network. My belief is that it's not easy. You just have to be out there. You just have to move from your comfort zone. I remember there's a time one of the boards were recruiting for a chairman within themselves. And one of the persons who was supposed to be the chair, he was disqualified, or they did not pick him because whenever they went to the golf club, whenever they finished playing golf, he would just pack his bags and get to his car and leave, you know, and the rest would sit back, have stories, catch up. So they were like, this guy is not social, you know, because as a leader, you have to constantly sharpen your axe. And the only way to do that is by interacting with people. So again, it depends with somebody's personality. But even if you're not free-spirited, you just put yourself out there. Just even if you go for an event, you don't have to network with 100% attendees who are there. Just get one or two people, and then make it your habit that everywhere you go, just network with one or two people, get to know them. They will build your network. And then I'm a Rotarian, just like Francis. I've been in Rotary for a long time. That's another place where I think there's a good network. I joined Rotary when it was very, very strict. Nowadays, I think it's easier. We've made it easy for people to become Rotarians like before. Before, it was a bit hard, because I remember you just go to, what was this hotel? Intercon, and you find these old men seated in a corner somewhere, and you just did not understand what was going on, you know. And there's a time I attended a Rotary meeting in Colombia, and it was one of the best Rotary meetings I ever attended, because these guys were only 6, and all 6 were billionaires, and they were very old. I think the youngest was around 70. So you had very old people still creating time to meet over lunch and network. Yeah. So for us, even as young people, I feel no person should feel they know it all, or they're an island. So you should always just put yourself out there. And then the simplest way also of creating relationships and networks is befriending people, especially people who you might think they might not help you much. Those are the people who build your network. Like if you go to offices, become friends with the receptionist. I like becoming friends with guards. I'm friends with certain security people for senior people, because whenever I want to get them, I just call them, and they will pick. You're like, where are you guys? Where's this person? Can I come and see them in the office? And when you go to the offices, they will just let you in because you're their friends. But the moment you say, I only come to see the boss or the CEO, you know, it sometimes it doesn't really go so well. So just become free-spirited, become friends with anybody that you come across, and constantly, also when you create a network, something that I also learned, especially when you go for events, it's always good if you're given email addresses or cards. It's always good to reach out, you know, and do an email and say, it was nice meeting you, let's catch up, and probably just send a brief of what you do. You find people now even have a better understanding of who you are. So networking, like I said, there's nowhere you just say, this is what the network is. So I will wake up, go to Serena, go to Kempinski. That's where I'll meet the people. Just be free-spirited. I meet people every day. Even now, when I leave my house, I'm sure when I go to any place, I'll just create a network, and I will constantly remind people of what we do, and they will refer you to more people.
Yeah, I guess, again, it starts and it becomes a chain as we are continuing. So Mercy, where do you find your networks?
So for me, networking is with intention. Yeah. I ask myself, why this person, and what do I hope to learn, right? And this is usually related again to my purpose, what I hope to achieve with a certain goal, right? So by being able to define why this person and what I hope to learn, I look for opportunities. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. For me, LinkedIn serves several purposes. One, it helps me stay on top of the latest trends in my industry and in the job market, right? And then I also get an opportunity to follow those people who've gone ahead of me and be able to learn from them, and then mentor those who are coming after me, right? And of course, just by also participating in the LinkedIn community, it allows me to provide thought leadership and advance my career or my opportunities by being visible, right? So LinkedIn definitely for me has been a key opportunity to find people, to network with them, because sometimes it's as simple as having a conversation on messaging through LinkedIn, right? And just asking someone, which eventually can lead to a face-to-face meeting. And then that's when now you come in, you ask a question about what is it that irks you about people trying to network. I think one of the things you definitely need to do really, really well as a person looking to network is be very prepared. What do you want from this person? Because this person is giving you an opportunity to talk to them, to to build them and things, to build you rather. So just come with the intention of understanding, having purpose, just defining what you want from this person, and then having that conversation. Other than LinkedIn, I also plug into communities or nodes specific to my work. So for example, I've in the last few months, I've been really big on putting myself out there within the leadership spaces, and also networking to just be able to connect with other leaders. So one node, for example, that I have really plugged into is called The Room. And this is a space where amazing people come together to just, to network, to support each other. There've been insane opportunities, like people going for events that have been hosted by The Room and coming out of there with jobs. And so I plug into communities such as this so that I can be able to just network, connect, also offer myself up for supporting people, mentoring, and things like that. So in summary, I'd say that network with intention, have a purpose, very clear purpose of what you want to achieve, and then look for the specific spaces that would be able to really promote you within this intention that you have.
Mm-hmm. I like what this panel has actually just put out today. You notice that within networks, you also have to be very, very intentional about what it is that you're communicating, what it is that you're putting out there, so that people can be able to associate you with the purpose that you have. That requires a lot of self-awareness. It requires a lot of self-regulation. It requires for you to consistently look at your purpose, reevaluate it, keep it like a live thing that you keep. It keeps evolving as you keep evolving yourself. And you can see that there is places where have been mentioned here that are very good from all our leaders. We understand most of them are in the Rotary clubs. We see people are plugging into their social media very well. You see that people are actually intentionally selecting events and joining them. We've been introduced to The Room and many other things. So when you're looking to join network groups, make sure that you're joining groups that are actually going to further your agenda. They are going to further your growth, and they are going to further your thinking and widen your space. And you as a person, you need to be able to also continuously volunteer, bring yourself up for opportunities. Don't be that person that sits in the corner of the room and doesn't say anything. Just like we've heard from Bonnie, don't come play golf, park and leave. Actually, the networking happens after the event maybe, and you had left the place, and therefore you end up missing on the many things that could be happening. As a human being myself, I like to appreciate that the journey of leadership is very long, it's wide, but I normally classify it into 3 phases. I say, okay, this is the new leader phase. I'm trying to create my things moving here, going there, work, and now we are in that space where I think, now I know myself, yeah? I've got this, I know what I'm doing. And then of course it comes to that very last stage where you say, yes, I can be able to, inspire and leave a legacy. So in this space where we say we've got it, there is very many things that come into our way. And one of the things that I also just want to mention at this point is that this journey can be continuing and these spaces can be intertwining. Sometimes you can think you've got it, but maybe really you're just learning again. You can think you're inspiring, and then at some point you've noticed that actually I need to get this even better. So please keep in mind that it keeps moving. It's not a static space. But then I keep to wonder, with the leaders that have established themselves, with the leaders that are already intentional about their leadership, with the leaders that are already leading high impacting teams, I have a very personal questions that I want to ask. And if we could just take 2 minutes per speaker to just answer, What is the role of empathy in your leadership style and flair? Sorry, do you find it to be important? Are you practicing empathy? So we can start with Mercy, Francis, and then Bonnie.
Empathy is really important. And it's also, interestingly, one of the hardest things to learn, right? And for me, empathy basically means putting myself in someone else's shoes, right? So, and trying to see things from their perspective, right? So this is difficult sometimes, especially when you're in a situation where you feel that your reaction to a certain situation is justified. But as a leader, it's one of the things that you constantly have to do, no matter the situation, because it helps you be able to be responsive rather than reactive, right? As a leader, I don't think we have the space or the permission to be reactive to situations, because people are looking up to us for guidance and direction. And so we need to respond no matter how dire the situation is. So empathy, I think, is one of those things that really, really helps people be able to respond. Yeah. Again, it's not an easy thing. I know for myself, I've struggled with this because sometimes in a situation where someone is deliberately doing the wrong thing, for example, right? It's difficult to try and put yourself in their shoes and try to see why they would do something like that. But it's important because you could find out that maybe this person, for example, doesn't just understand what is expected of them. Maybe it's not as nefarious as you think. There could be a reason. And even if you find that the person is doing the wrong thing intentionally or whatever, for whatever reason, empathy enables you to be able to handle the situation with dignity and give both for yourself and both for the other person, because no matter how wrong a person is, there's no room for taking away a human's dignity, right? And I think empathy allows for you to be able to handle any situation with dignity.
Wow, I have to say that is very well said. Bonnie, sorry, Francis, to your empathy, what role does it play for you?
Okay, so I don't know whether to call it empathy. For me, I call it being human. I usually tell people, be human, in everything that you do, just be human. Because even sometimes in the schools that we support, sometimes you have schools that have messed up with supplies that you delivered. But sometimes you feel pushed like to be reactive. But what I do in such instances, I go back to my team and tell them, this and this has happened. And we need to decide on how we are going to handle this pool so that at least I get to calm down and not react, but put a human face to whatever response we need to give to that. So another thing I would say is that, because I'm basically calling it being human, is that at the end of the day, even the teams that we work with, because I basically work so much with volunteers, even the teams that we work with, it's never about the pay. It's about, are you even there for them, for your team? Even in certain instances, maybe they are unwell or something, just wishing them a quick recovery or something like that. Because sometimes I push my team to even share some of the personal struggles or challenges they might be facing. Like I remember there was one time that one needed to process a passport, but they didn't have the cash to process a passport. And they said, okay, let me take care of this. And then at the same time, in my space, because I've realized like most organizations, I hope this won't get me in the red light, but most organizations, yes, they have volunteers, but they really don't take good care of their volunteers. We have a number of young people who are even stopping to volunteer because either they are misused or So mostly I call it misuse because at the end of the day, when we go with volunteers for an activity, especially when COVID hit and we are distributing food to families, then I ask myself at the end of the day, we went with this team to distribute food to this family. How about this person? Do they have food in their house? You see, so it's a matter of being human and just because sometimes they get shocked because we give them transport and lunch allowance, and they're like, but you gave us lunch, you took us to a place, we ate, and you provided transport even to and from our places. But I'm like, I'm just being human because at the end of the day, I don't want this person, in as much as yes, they're volunteering, they've gone back to where they've come from, and they totally don't have food, yet they gave someone else food. That is, I think it would look even awkward. So I would just call it being human, having a human face to everything, and not being reactive, because that is very important. So yeah, so that is my take on it.
Wow, let us just be human. I don't know if any of you follows me on social media. I normally identify with all the professional things, and it ends with human being. That is where it comes from for myself. So I totally resonate with what you, Francis, say about empathy. Bonnie, let's hear from you. Empathy. Yeah, what role does it play for you?
I agree with Francis. Even before we are leaders, we are human. So it's always good to remember that at the end of the day, we are all human beings. There will always be someone better than you. There will always be someone who will lead better than you, and you'll not be there forever. Yeah. So sometimes we as leaders think that we'll be in certain positions forever, but this just ends at some time. So you have to create those personal bonds with people. So one of the things that I do is to just understand people, even their personalities, because again, I realize personalities really has a big role to play in how people interact. You'd even know when is the right time to talk to this person, how to approach it. Even before I send an email, I think I read it 2 or 3 times just to be sure. Other times, if I'm annoyed, I would write an email, delete it, send the email the next day. Yeah. So I think it's the same thing that Mas was saying. You don't have to be reactive, Otherwise, you just do an email and you're very annoyed and say all the wrong things and you hurt somebody's feelings. So being human is something that you just take a back seat and realize the people you're leading, some of them will even achieve better career results than you'll ever think of. So it's some sort of also incubation. You might think now today you're leading them or you're their boss, and then the next day they're even better people and better leaders. So you should never feel that you're so privileged to be in a certain position. So it's always good to practice that empathy, incubate people, know that at the end of the day, these are the people who are building the company with you. And otherwise, if you're so good at it, you just build the company alone. So I believe empathy plays a very big role. So even as much as we push for results, sometimes you just try and understand what this person is going through, and they feel, when they know that you understand them and you're there for them, they even achieve better than when you're just constantly oblivious of what is happening in their lives.
Mm-hmm. And that's a very powerful statement that you make. In any space, you have to understand and appreciate that you have the person first, then you have other things that follow. You start to notice that if you bring the person to work, it can easily become a place where the person can thrive and be happy. If you are consistently aware of who you're talking to, who you're dealing with, you find that you are in the right space to give advice, to speak to people, to deliver news. And that is something that is quite big. The people who work with me know that I am recently practicing this rule. I'm consciously this time practicing the rule, the 4-hour rule. Whatever message I receive, I will respond after 4 hours. And I used to believe that I was very good at not being reactionary. And I noticed just by the little things that I have done, both in my private personal life and also my professional sphere, I just noticed that actually I was not as steady as I thought I was. I was doing things that I would look back and say, man, I should never have done that. That email that goes out and you just kind of want to pull it back. That statement just gets out of your mouth and you're like, oh my gosh, what happened to me there? These are things that I have done consistently, especially when you're having a conversation with somebody. It gets harder when you have a conversation with somebody. And that's why I keep applying the self-awareness, self-regulation, and it's something that I send to all leaders out here. Everyone budding as a leader, be aware of yourself. When you practice self-awareness, there is something that becomes very clear for you. You become steady and you start to hear yourself. You can actually hear yourself lose your temper. you can actively know what happens when you're just about to lose your temper, and you actually have the ability to regulate yourself back into a space where you're not reacting from emotions, either heightened or very disinterested spaces. When I say that, people might be looking at us as this panel and wondering, do you guys make mistakes? How have you been dealing with your mistakes? And I just want, again, 2 minutes per panelist to just tell me the one mistake that happened, not just necessarily a mistake or even a failure on your part that happened, and what you did about it. And I'm talking about those public failures, not those things that you did in your house and just kept quiet. So those public failures, or those the things that you did that the public would be able to see and you are not at your finest. What was that, and how were you able to, dust it off and try again? You can start with Mercy, then Bonnie, then Frances.
Okay. Honestly, there are quite a number. It's even sometimes difficult to figure out which one to pick, but I think the one that comes, the two that come to mind. One, I lost my temper in public, and it was a case of someone was supposed to do certain things, and they just did not do it, and I just flipped, and I'm talking about in the office in front of like 30 people. I just lost my temper and started yelling, like, what on earth would inspire you not to do something, but why still not communicate that it's not done? Because the person who's coming for these things is at the door, like 2 seconds away, walking from towards us, and we're in this awkward position. So in as much as the fact that this lady had not done her work, and I was justified in being upset, I think, as I said, there's no time that as a leader you are allowed to take away the dignity of an individual. And I feel that was one of my biggest moments where I just cringe and say, like, yeah, I really failed there. I think another one I'd give an example of is a colleague that I worked with, and seemed to be struggling with work, and then we're both big personalities and we're clashing. And I'm managing this person. We would just lock horns day in, day out, and it became really exhausting and very public, because I felt in some ways, maybe it's just in my mind, but in some ways I felt like the office were taking sides, camp this versus camp that, and it was exhausting because doing other work felt really trying. Like if you go to someone and talk to them, yet you feel like that person is camp nani, it became really difficult to move forward. So I think the thing that I realized that is that this one I'm struggling to handle, and it's better to just bring someone else who can be a third party, intermediary, and mediate this situation. And so we actually had a sit down and had a conversation, because the situation was really deteriorating. So we had a conversation with this person, the third party, and we worked through. We all put our issues on the table, and she helped us figure out what each of these emotions and feelings and concerns that we both put on the table mean, and how the other person is responding to this issue that I have, or these emotions I'm emanating. And eventually we actually got to a point where we understood each other and started laughing at how we used to fight. We're actually now really good friends, and we don't work together, but we're really good friends. But one of the things that I learned from there is that sometimes it's just important to, one, talk to people, bring in someone else to support you if sometimes this looks like it's just getting out of hand. It doesn't hurt, even if you're a leader, to bring in a third party to support you, to mediate the situation. And then also just remember, dignity of people should never be compromised. It should always be something that is at the forefront. So handle any situation that allows you to give yourself dignity and the other person dignity.
Yeah, I guess failures and mistakes are common, and we keep learning from them. And most of the learnings that I do actually learn from mistakes. And just like Mercy has said, I think for most leaders is about how you react to situations, yeah, and especially at work, you might react without putting the feelings of the other person into consideration. And employees go through a lot. We all go through a lot. And that's something sometimes we take for granted. So one of the mistakes that I think I have done was also which is also very hard. I find it very hard. Exiting somebody is hard. Yeah, I don't know if it's just for me or it happens. It's one of the most, although people think it's easy, yeah, but it's one of the most difficult things that you do. Then sometimes it's even worse when you do it juakali. If you do it juakali way, which I have done before, yeah, you just wake up and you're so annoyed, you just tell this person, I just don't want to see you, you just have to, So that's a mistake I've done before, where you just exit somebody in a way that is not proper. And then of course, you get a backlash. You even have the person suing you, and most of the time when the employee is sued in Kenya, mostly, most of the chances are you lose the case. Yeah. So that's one of the mistakes that I have done, where you just act out of emotion without really taking a back seat to understand and just be yourself. And then you realize when it is too late, and I'm tempted to start practicing that 4-hour rule, where you just take 4 hours before you react to a situation, because there are things that happen and then you just react immediately with emotion. And then immediately after reacting, or even the next day is when you regret, you're like, I even let go of the right person, So I feel that's a mistake and a failure that I've had in the past. But I like how I'm learning from the different panelists and speakers. Yeah.
Wow, Bonnie, that's amazing. Mercy, thank you also for your comments on this. And I just want to hear from Francis 2 minutes so that you can be able to go to the next step.
Okay, I think I can single out 3 instances of failure. One was, I think there were two of my team members that were having issues. So one would tell me this and the other would tell me that. And I think I would buy into either of them was telling me, until I realized that was the right thing to do. And so luckily I ended up now having to call both of them and have actually a meeting with both of them just to clear out the issues. And then another thing was, initially we would, when a school messed up with supplies, we would actually just cancel supporting the school. But we used to do it so juakali that we didn't have a written formal thing. So that is something that I have learned to not ever do again, because yes, they would go out there and say stuff. And so it really did something on our image. So these days we've learned to now do a formal written, we have a meeting and then we have a formal written notice that is just telling them that these are the issues that we have, and now we have resolved that. Now we will no longer be supporting this particular school. And then another thing that we used to do was another mistake was just to text supplies to the schools, but we never used to have delivery notes. So proving that those supplies reached to those schools became a difficult thing, because now when you wanted to pinpoint that, we brought this number of kgs of a certain thing in this school, would be so difficult. Yes, you have it on your receipt that you used to purchase, but now you can't prove it that the school received it. So we learned the hard way, and now got into having delivery notes that are signed both by our team members and also signed by the school, and the school also does a rubber stamp. They remain with a copy, and then you remain with a copy. So that has even made matters at least better. So yeah, I think I would single out those 3 that at least I learned from them in a big way. Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing to just hear how raw the panelists are, and there's this outside in the world, there is this presumption that being in leadership is you being in a perfect space, doing the perfect thing, and everybody is the one that follows you, you know. When you stand up straight, everybody can tell if you're a leader that no, you have never done no wrong and you have always been standing astute. For me, that's one of the leadership cliches that I just wanted to get rid of. Everybody, wherever you're sitting today, have peace, look at yourself kindly. Every person makes mistakes. Every person, you have to just look at yourself with kindness and start to grow and learn from your experiences. I have personally been in a situation where I have I did not listen constructively to the whole story. And you know, once you don't listen constructively to a story, you tend to be drawn to a side, which is something that is very dangerous as a leader, because when you make a decision, when you're drawn to a particular side, what it is that you would do is to alienate the rest of the people that are within your sphere. That is something that I have learned to really taper myself around, right? You sit and say, okay, I need to know the whole story. And this is something that I would advise all leaders, especially when you're in a decision-making phase, know the whole story. Because once you know the whole story, the choices that you make, the decisions that you make from then henceforth become inclusive for each and every one that is around you. And I want to just go back to Mercy to just give us that one cliche that will leave us just wondering, okay, I'm not necessarily saying that we should start them or stop them, just that one cliche that you're thinking about. Bonnie, one cliche. Francis, just one cliche that is going on around in leadership that you just kind of want to tell people, you might want to rethink that. Well, what would that be for you?
I think the one that stands out for me is that failure is not an option. Okay, that one for me, I'm just like, absolutely not. It's not something I stand by, because it goes even against the tenets of growth mindset. Growth, for you to have a growth mindset, you have to embrace failure. Failure is part and parcel of learning. Failure is part and parcel of being a human being. So when we say failure is not an option, you're basically saying like, yeah, let's just have a fixed mindset. The best inventions in the world actually came from failure. So for me, I feel that it's really important for us to learn how to embrace failure and how to turn failure from like that, this dismal feeling of missing, to an opportunity to learn. Yeah.
Great. So for me, again, failure is an option. So yes, Bonnie, what is it, that one cliche for you?
I think it's almost related to Mercy's. For me, I think as a leader, you don't have to always know the answer. Don't be scared to say don't know, you know. Sometimes people ask me and I say, I don't know, I don't have the answer. And most of those times you find the person asking for a solution, they come up with a solution. Yeah. So you come to my office, you have this problem, and then you want an answer. I tell you I don't know the answer. Then what do you think? What do you think would be the solution here? And you find that they have the solution. So this person has a problem and they still have the solution, but they probably didn't have the confidence to step up and really know that this is a solution. So that is one of the most effective ways that I've picked up, and it mitigates that issue of leaders thinking that you always have the answer. So as a leader, don't ever feel bad about yourself when you don't have an answer. It's okay to say you don't know and get solutions from other people. Yep.
All righty, Francis, on your part, where we see having an answer is not always the case. In leadership, sometimes it's fine to not have an answer. Francis, that one cliche for you?
Okay, I think I tend to agree with Bonnie and Mercy in terms of, you can fail, you're allowed to fail. And for me, I would say, it is, as a leader, the one cliche that I would say is that as a leader, I think it is, you need to come to the point where it is okay to say no. No, there's that guilt tripping where you say no and tend to, when you bring the empathy side. But as a leader, I think it is okay to say no. It is very okay to say no. Because sometimes, even in our leadership positions, there are people who take advantage of your yes. and run with it. So there are points where you need to just say no and be comfortable with your no, be it no to opportunities, certain opportunities, or no to certain demands, or no to certain issues that crop up. It is okay to say no. And also as a leader, I would say, yes, you don't know it all, so you are not, and you can't solve everything as a leader. So let me just say that, yeah, as a leader, you can't solve everything. So yes, we have limitations. We are human. As leaders, we are also human. So we are not superhuman beings. I always say only God is a superhuman. So we are prone to make mistakes, and we are prone to failures, and we are allowed to say no. So yeah, that is all I can say.
I absolutely love the cliches that have been bursted here today. And if you have been listening to them, I really hope that they have put some kind of impact and have changed your mindset. I also just want to add that, sometimes it is okay to feel that everything is not okay. Yeah. The way they always see a leader should always be chippery up motivated. That's not the case. There are days when you will just be like, okay, this is not a good day for me. And that is okay. It is totally okay to be that way. I want to encourage our participants to, type your questions in the chat. Let's keep talking to our panelists as we are winding up the conversation. As you can see, all these leaders have moved from the different spaces where I talked about the new leadership phase. They have got this phase, and now we're talking about the legacy phase. I just want to understand from you, Bonnie first, then Mercy, then Francis. What is the legacy that you want to leave behind? How is it that you want people to be inspired and impacted by the actions that you're taking currently and in future? 2 minutes each. Thank you.
I think for me, it's several. One of them is about e-waste. Of course, I want to be remembered like the person who really drove e-waste management in Kenya and across Africa, and also promoting circularity. So that's something that I would want to really constantly be associated with. But over and above that, I think the best legacy would be having people who, like having, what do I call it, clones of myself, you're impacting other people to become better versions of themselves, such that you're able to not just be the one who knows it all, but you leave a legacy where you have people who are empowered, you have employees you've changed lives for, and also created impact in the society. And specifically as a leader, I think one of the best things is to see the people you work with stepping up to become better leaders, whether in the departments within your organization or also in other organizations. So I take it as when you're a leader, it's like you're also incubating people. And like I said, some of these people that you think you lead will achieve better results than you. Yeah. So you need just to facilitate that process. So for me, I feel good when I feel I'm just a facilitator. Just the same way when you go for trainings, you have somebody who is facilitating the process. So for me, I take this as just a way of facilitating people to become better. And when I see people becoming better and I look back and see where this person came from and where they are now, that's what makes me happy. And I would really be excited to just see the kind of direct impact to make on people's lives. So that would be my key legacy.
That is amazing. That is quite amazing. Let's hear from our next panelist.
I couldn't have put it better. I agree with Bonnie. Absolutely, being able to mentor and coach and help people be the best versions of themselves is what I hope my legacy would be about. It's being able to pay it forward, because I had someone who I have had actually several people who have been able to work with me to get me to this point. I think the other thing that I would love for my legacy to reflect is the fact that, especially for women, there's no limit, right? There's usually conversations around the glass ceiling about where you can go. I want to be able to demonstrate with my life, with my work, with my leadership, that you will go as far as you want to, and can be able to have a fulfilling life as a professional, have a fulfilling life as a wife, as a mother, as all the different facets of your life, a daughter, a sister, or whatever you want to put there, and be able to just grow and thrive in all these spaces. You don't have to be limited to just one particular thing. That I hope is something that can be reflected, and that I can show younger people that all you have to do is really be intentional about what you want to achieve.
Let's hear from you.
Okay, mine is simple. My legacy, I think I would love it just to be written. I was here, you know. I was here. I left a footprint of positive change, and inspired a generation for each one to just reach one. That's all that I can say. Thank you.
No, that is very, very profound from you. As you can see, the leadership also is not just about self. And I like the fact that this panel is recognizing that it's about self. It's about the impact that you make in your little space and the society that is around you. I see we have very good questions that are coming in from the chat. We have a question where somebody is talking about how they always have good ideas, but then they always get stage fright, and they just run and abandon their the particular thing that they wanted to do. I have a question here that somebody is wondering, how do you transition from, what is the difference, sorry, between management and leadership, and what is that transition? So I will just throw the question of fright back to the panelists. I don't know who would want to take it, but for me personally, as Wendy, I would tell you this: I am afraid every day. When I wake up in the morning, I look at the things that I am going to do, and I'm like, my word, I don't know what I'm going to do with all of these things. But I go back again, self-regulation, self-awareness, and say, okay, this I understand, this I need help on, this I need to have a conversation with different people. This is a group job, not an individual job. But every single day I wake up and look at things and I get afraid. And I am now learning to be comfortable in the fear that I have. I'm learning to ask the right questions that help me alleviate this fear. But I never at one point will I advise somebody that I am never afraid of the things that are happening around me. I don't know how our panelists think. We could just take 1 minute each to answer that question as we're moving on. Anyone?
I think just to jump in, definitely fear is real. And as Wendy has said, we all experience this every day. For me, I think and I can see someone has also asked, how did we get into public speaking? I think the first step was just to start small, right? Present to your family, present to your friends, then challenge yourself to present to an audience that's not family or friends, or a very small audience of maybe 2 people. People who would be helpful in giving you feedback, critiquing, and helping you figure out how to move forward. Because the only way to get better is to practice. If you want, there are actually tools out there that you could download, you could read about, or even communities such as Toastmaster. This is an international community of people who help each other become better public speakers. You can join such communities and just go practice there, because it's usually a safe space that helps you to be able to learn and to practice and be critiqued in a positive way, and for you to build your confidence. So I just say, take that one step, no matter how small, and keep taking that step, because that's the only way you're going to grow and actually get to the point where you're comfortable speaking to people. And just by the way, I think we're presenting as if we're really confident and everything, but let me not lie to you. Palms sweating, heart racing, it's real. And we all go through this every time before we have a conversation, but because we've done it, we've learned how to get past that. That's one thing I'll say. I always feel like this nervous, but then I've learned how to master my emotions and get past that. So I'd encourage you to just start practicing so that you can be able to get past that stage fright.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mercy, that's actually quite expansive in stating. I also just want to get into some of the other questions that have been asked. I want to take on the differentiation between the management and the leadership. So for me, I put it in very simple terms. We just say management is about execution, leadership is about vision. If you're looking for the vision, you're looking for where things are going to go, how they're going to go in that direction, and how do we create that map you're leading. If you're in that space where you're taking that vision and turning it into action and making sure that that action becomes as impactful as the vision was intended, you're managing. So for me, I just like to put that very clear distinction. It has worked for me very well. And one thing that I have noticed is that sometimes individually I am leading and sometimes I am managing, and sometimes that can happen in the same space or same day. So the line is there, but then again, it's not that now I'm a leader, I will never execute, or now I'm a manager, I will never lead. So again, this is just about developing, growing, and forming your own, charting your own path with the things that you have available to you. I see there is another question that has been raised here by our panel where they're talking about there being slim chances for leadership and what people can do despite them having the ability to lead. We also see somebody is asking a question here on how you can deal with your boss who is not a leader, but they are actually executing their managerial function quite well. So I'll throw this back to the panelists to volunteer to respond. Panelist, anyone?
Maybe I think Bonnie can respond to that better.
Yes, Bonnie. Yes, Bonnie.
That is why you're picking on me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really difficult one, but I believe it's a learning process for all of us. I learn a lot from the people I work with, and the boss, the so-called boss, can learn from you. You know how you carry yourself, how you handle situations, and even the conversations that you have with them. So what you need, my advice to you would be, see how you can make this person a better boss, just by the kind of, not to show him that he's a small person, because I know that people don't appreciate that, but by just having conversations that are very natural. So you take it upon yourself to build this person to become a leader. If you feel they're just a boss and they're just executing their work, when you start trying to show them the aspects of leadership, if it's vision, like if you're working in a company, try and show them that, constantly talk to them about the mission of the company, like the vision, have those discussions, like where do you think we'll be as a company in the next 2 years, 5 years? So when you start having such kind of conversations with this person, they will also slowly start thinking about it. And the more they think about it, the more they will now start becoming a leader, because a leader has to have a vision. So that will be my thought. But again, it might not be right, you know. Like I said, we don't have monopoly of knowledge.
Yes, I really like the answer that you've given, Bonnie. It's very introspective. Because you see, the one thing that I just like to mention here again, from the beginning of this conversation, we learned that everybody is leading. You could be in that space where you're the new leader, it's informal, you're leading without a title, and you're just growing within the area. The other thing I like to just mention, especially when you're working, is back to purpose. What is it that you want to do? When you go back on your purpose, you start to notice that things work differently for you. The one thing I always advise employees, employers, people in a space where we are interacting with one another, let us not give in to the very natural instinct to dig into a problem. Because, you know, as human beings, we are very naturally inclined to dig into a problem, to be like, this thing is not working, this person should have done this person should have done this. Instead, start asking yourself these questions. What am I doing to make this situation better for me? What am I doing to return myself back to the path of my purpose? What am I doing to ensure that after this engagement, my purpose will have progressed, or I would have progressed in the things that I want to do? It's not your natural instinct, but if you consciously practice asking yourself that question, you find that you are seeing more opportunities that are available around. I see 2 participants have raised their hands. I don't know if Josephine, you would let them have a conversation, ask us a good question here and there. I see one question on the chat that says, why is it so hard for leaders to make other leaders, but they easily gain followers? And to my panelists, as we are winding up, I just want to ask you one question that you'll answer after the questions from the panel, from the speakers, sorry, from the audience. How do you let your hair down? Where do you do it when you can just go relax without having to be, also conscious that, hey, I'm leading people here? So let's go. As you're thinking about it, I would want to just take the question from Sydney. Why is it so hard for leaders to make other leaders, but they easily gain followers? And I would like to throw to the panel the question that said, I seem to have missed that question. Oh yes, the thing about upskilling. Are you upskilling? Like we've continuously said that we are reading etc. Are we upskilling, and is it important in the areas that you are? The issue about leaders not creating other leaders, for me, and this is speaking from the perspective of Wandi, one thing about leadership is that leadership is about creating people who can be able to be well empowered to lead. I am a firm believer of the statement, you cannot be promoted if you cannot be done away with. For you to move forward, you have to be done away with. And for you to be done away with, you have to create other people who can sit in that space. So every day, personally, I go to work or I do these conversations, I know very well that I will be replaced, because I want to move forward. So for me, I am not sure why the leaders why some leaders do not want to create leaders. But personally, as Wandi, I would say, I know for me to move forward, I must be replaced where I am. So consciously, I create people who can, I create environments where people can thrive enough to replace me. So I don't know, panelists, if you are ready with your answers to the upskilling and just letting us know how you let your hair down as we wind up. We'll start with Mercy, Bonnie, then Frances.
Sure, Wandi, thanks for the question. Upskilling is a vital part of not just your leadership journey, but your journey as a human being. I think it's important to read wide, read deep, because this helps you expand your mind, opens you up to different points of view, challenges your current understanding of something, right? So definitely you should be able to upskill yourself. You should be able to look for resources that help you learn something new. Keep tabs with what's happening in your industry. Like, for example, there's been conversations around automation of stuff, right? And the risk that there's some jobs that are going to be rendered obsolete as a result of automation, injection of technology into different spaces that were traditionally done in certain ways. So what are you doing to make sure that you avoid being one of the can I say victims of technology taking over certain jobs? You have to upskill yourself. You have to understand what skills are valuable out there, and be very proactive in learning or developing these skills. Of course, you also need to think about what you want with your, with your career. And so be able to learn in that space, and actually look for courses, on the job training, mentorship, and stuff like that around this. With regards to how I let my hair down, I've become very intentional about saying no to things, so, and carving out time for my family, carving out time for my friends. I also like to play tennis, and I actually schedule this in my calendar the same way I would schedule any meeting or anything important, because what gets scheduled gets done. And so I've found that I have to literally schedule time with my family, time with everything, so that I can be able to prioritize them and prioritize the things that are important to me the same way I would prioritize a meeting. If you just leave it open out there that you will do it just because you can, that's a recipe for disaster.
Thank you very much, Mercy. Bonnie, what are you upskilling? How are you doing it? And how do you let your hair down?
Yeah, before that, I think there's something you said, Wendy, and I resonated very well. You said something about leading with no title, yeah? And coincidentally, the book that I'm reading is The Leader Who Had No Title. I don't know if you've read this book. So I was so convinced read it. I was like, Wendy must have read this book. So this is a very interesting book. And as you're speaking, and also as that question came up, I feel we need to lead without titles. And sometimes I think leadership and the title of leader is just a creation of society. We are all leaders, yeah? Everybody is a leader. And even the people we work with, I tell them, you're a leader in anything that you do. If you're cleaning, you're leading in that cleaning. If you're a guard, you have a very big leadership position that you have. You're managing whoever gets into the building that you're guarding. And it's all about planning, execution, and having a clear purpose. I tell guys, if you're given a role, for example, we have guys who work in different offices in the regions. You tell them, when you're in the region, you have to have all the power that you need. You're the CEO, you're the marketer, you're the administrator, you're the accountant. So you have to really understand that you don't really have to have a title. And that's one thing that I've believed for so long. You don't have to have a certain title for you to feel now, yes, I am now a leader. So in whatever small or big activity that you do, you need to know that you're a leader in that, regardless of whatever it is, and you need to create impact. Now, back to your question, which I think was on how you let loose and let your hair down. I'll not lie that I struggle with that. So that is something that I still need to work around, and I'll probably pick Mercy's advice on having it on a schedule. I think that might also assist, because some especially when you're an entrepreneur, you just find yourself addicted to doing this. I get very few hours of sleep every time. You just wake up in the middle of the night, and the moment you start thinking, you can't wait for morning so that you execute something. I find myself waking up in the middle of the night, writing something down. So, but again, I think just going for walks, maybe going to Karura is also good, where you just walk alone. Participating in certain groups, the right groups that will build you. Because I know nowadays there are very funny, many groups, guys who just have drinking groups, others, I don't know, gossip groups or what they are. But if you are in groups that build you as a person, so that in those groups, like now I'll still give an example of Rotary again, you meet and discuss things that are not necessarily within the work that you do, but things that will create impact in the society. There are people who will be okay with running and going for jogs either in the morning or in the evening. So I think those are some of the things that we can do, but it's a continuous learning process. So I'm also learning on how to manage being an entrepreneur and also having a social life.
Amazing, Bonnie. Francis, how are you doing on personal time?
Okay, I think in terms of, because you asked something about upskilling, I would agree with what Mercy said, because learning is a process, and it's continuous. So we learn every day, and there are skills we also gain along the way. There are things that we didn't know how to do initially, and just having that learning things every day is also important. And in terms of heart and mind, I think for me, it's okay, maybe it's easier and tricky at the same time, because it's easier in the sense that we mostly deal with kids. So most of the times it's fun when we interact with the kids. But at the same time, I work with a team that allow them to be themselves, and that we allow ourselves to be ourselves. So sometimes when I take a work trip to Kilifi, then we go to the beach, and some of them, because they know I'm not a good swimmer, so they go drop me in the middle of the ocean and take me to struggle coming back. So it's always fun. And then at the same time, I also allow kids just to be themselves, because kids are the most interested beings. I remember in the month of September, when I was celebrating my birthday, and I went to a children's home, and the kids had to wash me with some dirty water, and they were really enjoying, they were really having fun. So, and I also love quad biking. I love reading because it opens your mind. And at the same time, doing nature walks, which I feel, okay, for me, I do nature walks, especially when I'm upset about something or I need to make some decision that is really a huge decision. I just do a nature walk just to clear my mind, reflect, think, and or even take a trip to a place that is just quiet and just meditate around certain things. So yeah, so that is it for me. Yes, thank you.
Wow, I hope the people that are participating in this conversation have realized that where these people are, that people unwind, people upskill, and it's not every time that we're really good at doing the things that we are normally doing. I will take one last question from Elizabeth. Elizabeth, I have just asked you to unmute yourself and ask your question as we wind up, as we are already 10 minutes past the hour. Elizabeth? Elizabeth Oyombe, are you there? All right, it appears that we're not able to take that question from Elizabeth, but I just want to take 1 minute to just extend my deepest gratitude to the panelists that have been here today and for the wisdom that they have actually given to the people that have been participating in this conversation. I really hope that you have been impacted in one way or another and have learned new things along the way. I thank you all for the participation. I thank you for always coming in to join Conversations with Wendy, and I hope to catch you on the next one, which is the last Friday of November. As always, thank you and have a very lovely weekend ahead. And goodbye.
Thanks, Wendy, for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.